All right, hello everybody. We are going to give it just a couple more minutes while everybody rolls in, and then we'll get started.
I feel like we need some 50 Cent playing right now.
That was quite the concert. I think he did it all in one breath. Looks like we've got some great participants coming in today. I love it. To see so many friendly faces, some new faces. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Well, I think we should jump into it, folks. We have so much to cover, and of course, we've got a VIP guest. So I'm going to consider this live. Welcome back to Cork Cyber Rewired. This is session 2. I'm Dan Candee, CEO of Cork. Thank you for those of you returning from session 1. For those of you just joining for the first time, you picked a good one to walk into. We're getting pretty tactical today. And we've got some additional bonus material that we decided to throw in too. So some quick housekeeping. Chat is open. Chat is doing some real work this session. We're going to be using it for polls, questions, live feedback. If something resonates, drop a one-liner in so we know that the audio is working. If you want to be in the polls, watch for the questions. Just type in the answer. And let's see. So in session 1, we laid out the map, 4 paths. 1, Cork as an operating layer, not the monitoring tool. And if you missed it, replay is in your inbox. And today is the first real deep dive about operational efficiency. So here's the problem. If you're running a business in 2026, if you're running an MSP, you've got tool stack that has grown by accretion, right? And there's inefficiency in it, and we gotta find some money back. So every threat in the last 5 years has added a tool. Every acquisition added a tool. Every QBR where the client asked an uncomfortable question has added a tool. And rarely, or not enough, do they get taken out. So what that produces is a stack that looks comprehensive on paper, costs you real money, quietly hides the fact that you don't actually know every single detail that's deployed, coverage gaps, orphaned agents, license lines that you forgot existed. So one stat to anchor it on, partners running Cork's mapping flows are finding hundreds of orphaned agents across their client base, sometimes thousands. So some of the recovering over the $1,400 a month in license spend, which has been great. That's an average number. We've seen a lot larger. So that's a true finance number, not a marketing number, $1,400 a month. So quick chat poll. So before we go any further, question to y'all, how many security tools are you running across your client base today? Please feel free to type in or hit the hit whatever one is best for you. You've got less than 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, stopped counting. But by the way, when we were at Beyond this week, I was talking with one partner who said over 120, and I thought that was tremendous. Until later that night, I was at dinner with a partner that does a tremendous amount of M&A, and he said, I stopped counting at 190. That hurts my brain. So the interesting thing, uh, it's not the number. It's the interesting thing is that most of you, can't actually tell me with 100% confidence what's actually deployed against each of those tools every day. And that's what we want to help you fix. One of the things that we help you fix. So enough talking. Let me introduce our amazing speakers. Of course, we've got Mr. Andrew Mora, head of sales and strategic alliances. And if you were here for session 1, obviously you know him. If you know anything about Cork, obviously you know him. If you weren't around, he spent over a decade inside the channel before Cork running security practices at MSPs. He and Marcus are going to walk us through the actual workflows that partners are using to attack tool sprawl, surface gaps, and recover spend. And of course, the amazing, magical Marcus Reck, head of product and engineering. He's been here since day 0. He really doesn't require much of an intro. I do think of him as the magic man. Um, so great to have you, Mr. Marcus. We've got Bill Taylor. Bill is our partner success manager. If Mora is the one telling you what the workflows do, Bill is the one who runs them for you. It helps us all out. He sees the mapping pass on day one of every new partner relationship. Bill has been able to help so many partners in getting things set up and find efficiencies. So thanks, Bill, for joining us. And of course, our VIP, the Dr. Charles Love. Charles is the Chief Operating Officer of ShowTech Solutions out of Tampa, 30 years in the industry, chair of the Managed Services Executive Council at CompTIA, GTIA member champion, sits on advisory board at Cork and a half dozen other vendors in the space. And I can tell you honestly that Charles has never held back a single comment from me or the team. Charles, you've always been so vocal, and that's exactly the type of engagement that we love. Because you make the world a better place. So thanks for joining us today, brother.
Great to be here.
Yeah, nice. So, Mora, Marcus, I'm going to hand it over to you so we can jump into the good stuff.
Cool. I'll start out. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining, everyone. As you heard, my name's Andrew, but everyone calls me by my last name. So you'll hear that a lot. So don't be alarmed when you hear just randomly people saying Mora. That's me. I'm going to go through a couple of things as Dan was talking about how we can show you operationally how to manage your security tools in a little bit of a more efficient fashion, but then also from a sales perspective, how to bring other revenue to light in a really quick fashion, and then identify any orphan or zombie licenses that are out there. Obviously, like the trend around this is to not only run efficient, but to not lose any money, right? We're all trying to save and make money in this space. So any way that Cork can deliver that, we feel is a value add to our partners. And what's very interesting is within our platform, we'll be able to deliver those pieces to you. So let me share this with you. Just hold on one second. And y'all should.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's loading. Charles, did you make it to the 50 Cent concert on the other night?
I did. It was great.
Yeah.
So what Dan's referring to, everybody, if you didn't go to Beyond, 50 Cent closed out the show, and so it was one of the ending closing parties to really wrap up a long couple of days. As a vendor, I can attest it was one of the longest booth times I've ever been a part of. So, but okay, cool. So everyone should be able to see my screen. And again, what's very interesting, right, is when I was looking at the panel, because obviously that was the first time I had actually, or not the panel, but the poll that just came out. It was very interesting to see what y'all are consuming from a security perspective. Anybody who knows Jay McBain, he's also a part of Cork's board, but obviously a big analyst within the community. And what he's saying right now is the average MSP carries about 18 managed service products. Obviously, with just the security focus, you all saw that you're well on pace with that number, right? And so a question that I've been proactively asking partners in the space, especially over the last 6 months, is if I'm a net new customer to you and I buy whatever stack it is, right? If it's just your basic stack, your middle stack, or your platinum or premium stack, whatever it is, and I'm willing to pay top dollar for that. But I asked the question of, how do you know that my 10 employees are all consuming that stack that I just purchased from you 3, 6, 9 months down the road? And you hear a variant of answers, right? We are doing it. We're doing it very manually. It takes us a long time. And obviously, like in this space, time is money, right? You all know that. And so that's a big thing that we want to touch on today. So from that perspective, when I'll just brush over this really quick because I went over this last time, but I want to show you from an integration perspective, what we're initially doing is we want to connect into your RMM, and then we'll work down from there into your EDR, MFA, and so on to all your security tools. Obviously, the more tools that you allow Cork to connect to, the more visibility that we're going to give you. What's really nice about this is that we are API based. And so usually when MSPs see our slide with integrations, they'll see the 106 integrations on there and they'll kind of freak out, right? Because you all are used to having an agent where this is not that. And so from an onboarding perspective, it only takes us about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how many tools you're going to hook up. But as you can see, it's very straightforward from an API base. We're going to ask for a client secret, and then we're going to be able to connect into these tools. Now, what's nice about this, and honestly, this is what drew me to Cork over, I spent 5.5 years over at Pax8 and then other vendors prior to that. But what really drew me over to Cork is partners over the course of the last decade have said, I want one pane of glass. Us as vendors have told you that we offer one pane of glass, but what really it is we're offering one pane of glass per product. And then the other thing that MSPs have really been asking for is, I want my tools to talk to each other. And where I would say Marcus's real part of his genius with this is that the tools are cross-referencing each other from a quantity perspective, and should they be on and are they now off? We are going to identify that for you, and we can tell you that via a ticket or an email, depending on how you configure this. Now, talking about the efficiency play, right? If you go back to the question that I asked, if I buy a security stack from you, and to understand whether I'm consuming that stack or not, what Cork is doing is we're proactively monitoring all of these categories of tools every 24 hours. So if anything changes, we're going to be able to identify that and then notify you. So when that question comes up from a customer, or people say, how do you MSP? Here's what I'm doing to validate all your products every 24 hours. What's nice about that is if any of your customers ever come to you for help with their cyber questionnaires because it's time for renewal for their cyber insurance, here's where you can really educate them on like, hey, look, your attestations, what they really are is a one-time a year checkbox on a PDF that we send back to your insurers. We want to make sure as an MSP that you're actually getting what you're paying for. And if you ever do need to execute your policy, we lessen the likelihood of a denial of claim, right? And so what's nice about this is that whether you're popping into Cork or whether you're going into your PSA tool, you're going to know what that person's consuming or not consuming on a pretty good basis. And so what's nice about this is it's like your traditional endpoint tool or MSP product where you're going to have your multi-tenancy. And so if you did want to run a report on all of your clients, a specific subset of clients, any of those types of things, we have those capabilities as well. And so again, from a management perspective, instead of having to go into, and Marcus, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't really count the PSA as like one of the monitoring products that we would do. This is more of like a notifying you of a connection. But if you look at these other 8 categories that we're currently monitoring for you, that's where we're keeping it into this one environment, as opposed to having 8 different panels that you're having to go into to validate all of these actual tools are on. The other thing that obviously adds to this from a manual process, the more endpoints that you have, the harder this gets, especially like if you get, Dan was talking about some of the partners that deal with a lot of M&A. So imagine you assume or consume another MSP that doesn't have the same product parity as you. And now you have 2 EDRs, 2 MFAs, 2 backups. Instead of having to confirm to see which product each consumer is actually consuming, now you can just come into Cork and say, oh, and hover over that shield, and we'll be able to tell you exactly who's consuming what. And so like for this one, right, for this demo example, Los Pollos Hermanos is consuming Datto. This one happens to be consuming Slide. 2 obviously independent backups, right, and 2 different companies, but now we can see, hey, both of them do have a backup. They're just from two different portals. Any questions so far? I want to pass a little bit over this to Charles to ask him, from your perspective as an MSP, as a COO, do you all see any efficiency on what we're doing from a consolidation play within Cork?
Well, the big thing here is to make sure that the things that we think are in play are actually in play, right? And then, like you said, that single pane of glass, so many vendors and partners say, oh, no, you can pull everything into us, and it gets kind of complicated. Like, I'm a visual guy, right? I'm looking at the account on screen, and I'm like, why don't they have RMM and MFA? That's kind of weird. And why are we not backing up SATs? I think I need to talk to Dan about selling them some services, right? So, but like I can see that just from a quick view. That's how I operate versus some kind of chart with like little lights and stuff. So like that tells the story, and the account below doesn't have backup. Like what are we doing, guys? Right? These are demo accounts I'm saying, but pretend this is actually an MSP customer because a lot of
Totally.
times you just think everyone has email security or security awareness training
Well,
until
correct
you
me if I'm wrong, Charles. I believe it was your quote that was you were living in blissful ignorance before you.
100%.
And so
Yes.
if you could kind of touch on that, because that was a while ago, and I remember when you said that, because obviously you are one of our more vocal partners, and that is something that we appreciate because we do want to get better. And I believe you thought we were kind of over alerting you at some point in time, and if you want to kind of touch on that piece of why you were living in blissful ignorance.
Totally. So, we have an RMM, and it's actually kind of a funny story. And Dan and I recorded a podcast on this as well. Listen to that if you want. But this is the story in full. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, we had just turned on Autotask ticket integration. And I'm getting all of these tickets. And I'm like, Marcus, what are you doing? Your system is so broke. And Marcus is like, dude, I don't think it is. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, your system is broke. He's like, nope. So we keep going back and forth. Finally, we jump on a call. It's a whole big thing. I'm like, listen, man, love you guys, but you're telling me that in our case it was Huntress. Huntress is not installed on, it was a handful. We'll just say a handful of assets, and I'm like, I have an RMM widget that has been my baby for the last 5 years, and it tells me when it's installed or not installed. And Marcus goes, "Did you hear what you just said?" I said, "I think." And he pointed out to me, he goes, "We're not alerting to you that it's not installed. We're alerting you that it's not checking in." And I'm like, "There's a difference?" Like I honestly didn't know because for years we had been operating on, is Huntress installed? Yes. Cool. Is Huntress installed? No. Reinstall. Cool. Right? But we had found out that Huntress was broken. Right? And it's not a Huntress problem. It was an us problem because we apparently caused it and we know what it was. But what was actually happening is Cork was saying, hey, we have all of these vision points into this asset and it's missing Huntress. It's missing it. Like we see you have all these tools, but there's no EDR on the box. And I was like, there's no way. So sure enough, we get on the box, it's broken. And magically, as Marcus said it would, and I didn't believe him, we fixed Huntress. Next thing you know, ticket closed, ticket closed, ticket closed, ticket closed. That was a bit of a humbling moment, right? So that's when I kind of coined this Overwatch, right? Because RMM is very much yay or nay, right? It's either good or it's not. It's either installed or it's not. So we've actually made some adjustments to how we monitor for a lot of our services. We used to do, is it installed or not? Now we're using Cork as our back end to say, hey, is it all connected? Right? Because I was blissfully ignorant thinking we had Huntress installed on all these machines. There was I don't want to say the number because I'm kind of embarrassed by it, but we'll just say there was a decent amount of EDRs out there that we thought were running that it turns out were not correctly configured. And this helped us fix that gap. So found the gap, fixed it, has not been a problem since, knock wood.
And so why I thought that was very important, right, is he was able to identify this very quickly, even though there was a little bit of pushback at first. But then once,
100%.
once that was gone, it was like, okay, cool. This is actually identifying that on a very quick level because again, we are cross-referencing all those tools. So we are getting to that point where we're delivering what the community has asked for, right? I want all my tools to talk to each other and cross-reference each other. So from a technical standpoint, that's where it makes it really easy for your procurement people, the people who are doing vCISO work, any of that type of stuff. It makes it really, really easy, a lot faster to actually validate this stuff to make sure that you're not living in that blissful, ignorant bliss, right? And so from that perspective, that's really straightforward. What was really cool is a lot of partners ask for ways to actually consume the information differently. So our engineering team, Marcus's team, actually added this asset button where now you can actually start doing what I'm talking about, where you can now start to identify these orphan or zombie licenses. And then we can go across a specific client or all clients. So if you want to run an audit right against your entire environment, select the vendor, what you want to do it from. So this would be the kind of scenario we were talking about. And then we would be able to run an analysis, right? And then this is where you'd be able to run a query against all of your customers that are in Cork. Marcus will be able to show you this on steroids with the MCP portion, but this is generically what we have within our portal. You can also do this from a specific client. So if you go into the clients tab, you can also filter for this type of information. So again, just how you're consuming it, we wanted to make it different because obviously each MSP is their own little snowflake and a little bit different. Even here, I would say, again, this is where, depending on where you sit, your terminology and your thinking may be a little bit different. So a lot of our engineering team will like to call this a decommissioning tool. Me, I like to think of this as like, hey, am I spending any money that I shouldn't be, right? And so you can set up a specific time frame of where these licenses shouldn't be, and if they are, from a time frame of 60, 90 days, whatever your decommission process is, to where we start identifying those tools. Threat Locker is a big one that we always see because they have like a recycle bin. So it may be just something that is there, but you're not paying for. Great. We want to be able to bring that to surface and say like, this checks the box where I'm actually not spending any money on it. Because the other side of the coin is that we do find a lot of licenses that 3, 5, 10, right, for a specific vendor that they offboarded for a client or whatever, and those licenses are still checking in that they didn't still know that were there. And so this is just another safety net where we're able to actually identify those licenses that shouldn't be on specific environments, but for specific clients, because obviously this is just a revenue stream that is leaking, right? And we want to be able to put a cork in it. And so that's where a big portion of that comes in, from where we're able to help. Because I think one of the biggest things Charles just identified, right? We have all this telemetry, all this information. And what's cool about Marcus's team is they wanted to make it ready, accessible to you all. How am I doing on time, Dan?
You're doing okay. I'd say hit your last 2 points here, and then let's hand the mic over to Mr. Rec.
So from an efficiency play, like we get two, I would say. So I'm going to touch on this from a sales perspective, and then I'm going to switch back to a technical talk track for a second. So from a sales side of it, right? If I'm going to walk in to identify my specific subset of clients or my entire base, instead of thinking of it from a technical view, I can also see where my upsell opportunities are or where to harden their security posture. What's really nice about this is we can gamify this now, where you can simulate, hey, if I add SaaS backup, this is how it'll increase your actual Cork score, right? And so this is where you can start talking about, this is how I differentiate, this is how I'm making your risk profile a visual thing, as you know, most of us are visual learners, and it makes it really easy where this is like, hey, this is kind of like your Credit Karma score. This is where your posture is. This is where you kind of stand. Across my customer base, you're right in the middle. If you want to get a little bit higher and not be as risky as every other person that's out there, here's some things that we can actually do. What's also nice is now we're able to identify software vulnerabilities, because we are patching into a bunch of, your RMM and things like that. We are using package managers, so we're able to scrape 13,000 softwares. So what's nice about that is we're able to identify things that shouldn't be on the network, right? And so from that play, when you look at like your traditional RMM, they could do a couple hundred. ConnectWise just did where they can now do 4,000. But again, we have over 9,000 extra softwares that we can now scan for from a vulnerability perspective. Why that's very, very important to your end users is that's one thing that insurers are actually looking for, right? Is what kind of patch management is being done? What kind of software vulnerabilities do your customers have? How much of that environment is actually affected? Because essentially it's doing the actual portion of your due diligence to keep up with those software patching, right? What's nice about this is that Marcus's team have created a way to actually patch it through with Cork through your RMM. So we're not replacing your RMM, we're just enhancing your RMM. And again, it just makes it really easy to where we're going to be able to automate this portion if you so choose to use that functionality through Cork. So I would say from an efficiency play, like from my sales minded perspective, the way I really think about this is I'm able to identify a bunch of different things, a bunch of different tools within one platform with an easy, really easy view, right? Green, if it's gray, then you know it's not there. Something's obviously wrong, especially if you're like a standardized stack kind of MSP. But then obviously from an upsell portion and understanding, or if you want to think of it more from like the security side, if you want to harden their risk profile, how do I add things to that, right? And so it's really, really easy to one, visualize that, but then two, pull reports from this. And then if you wanted to do it more granular, this is where I'll pass it over to Marcus and he'll be able to show you like, because we get asked all the time, can you run this specific report for this specific client that has this one specific need? It's a little hard for us as a vendor to do that, but with MCP, you can populate that report pretty quickly. So it's been a really eye opener, especially for like, the sales guy that doesn't know all this stuff, to be able to deliver some of the requests that you all want from a reporting perspective. So, Marcus, I'll hopefully I did your updates on the efficiency play justice, and I'll pass it over to you to do some of the MCP
Sure.
prompts.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Mora. Yeah, I mean, like Charles said, we're more than just a checkbox. We're going that one layer deep, and um, you know, every vendor has an API, but we also went one layer deep, and we essentially made our API fully MCP compatible. A lot of other vendors will just make certain endpoints and certain functionality MCP capable, but what we decided was, the API should just be one-to-one with how the MCP should function. So let me get this API for, quite a while. Within the last 6 months or so, we added MCP on top of it. And, you could find all the API docs here. And it's all purposefully written to support those LLMs so it knows how to interact properly with all the parameters and endpoints and things like that. And we've tested it with all sorts of different configurations, whether you're using Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, right? It follows the specs, so it should just be able to drop into any other tool that you're using. For the sake of time, I just decided to write a few prompts in, some that are basic, and then they gradually get a little more complicated. So I have the Cork MCP hooked up here in Claude, and all I asked was just identify all the devices from integrations that haven't been seen for more than 2 weeks. So it's just parsing that. We have an endpoint to get the integrations, and then from each integration, it gets, a list of all of the devices in that. And the nice thing, it just gives you a nice summary at the end. In this case, a nice CSV, so you can understand, okay, I got a bunch in data BCDR that I haven't been checking in for quite a while. So I can use that. I can take it, export it, and give it to one of my techs, for example, and say, hey, what's up? Because this was similar to the last thing that Andrew was showing about the opportunity savings, right? This is just identifying a bunch of stale or zombie assets that, might be taking up a license or two. So the next example I have was a little more involved. And this is where it's going to start cross-referencing multiple of those data points. So I just wanted to, a high-level visualization of my clients, their devices, inboxes, and then highlighting the most risky ones, right? So from the same environment that Mora was showing, here's a breakdown of those clients, some with the highest risk and all the devices and inboxes, right? Then you have some with less risk, right? And what Claude ended up doing is made this a little interactive, and you can click on some of these, and it'll start running a prompt based on that to get the actual event, so you can get a little more detail on that. So this will run in real time. Might take
Well,
a
then
minute.
Marcus, if I was, because you're obviously doing it for more of like the technical aspect and like pulling that information. Now,
Yep.
if I wanted to do something, because I was talking to a partner about this yesterday, where if I wanted to also be able to identify, like you just did Los Pollos Hermanos, if I wanted sales side of it, identify the best sales opportunities, I could also put in that prompt too to say, what is what gap as a risk profile could I fill, and then identify that as the upsell opportunity, correct?
Yeah, you'd be able to ask those sort of questions. And so that might, feed into the next one I have, which is basically creating a QBR report for an individual client. So I said, hey, create a compliance-based QBR report, identify all the assets and compliance events associated with it, and some included recommendations on security posture. So with that, you could also introduce, um, you know, recommendations for sales opportunities as well, right? So if the security posture is lacking SaaS backup, maybe that could be one of those things because then it could increase the Cork score and things like that. Um, so this only took, maybe a minute or two to run and build the whole PDF. And this was the output that it gave. Um, Really nice summary on the security posture. Um, Breaks down everything, what tools that they're using, what tenants are making up from those tools for that client. So this could be an indicator, oh, maybe Doolin Automotive shouldn't actually be in this tenant, right? Um, and then it gives you a nice little inventory of that. And then we can go into compliance events and vulnerability exposure. So this is what Mora was showing right towards the end, software vulnerabilities. So in this particular client, got a few vulnerable assets that need some patching and things like that. So, but yeah, I mean, this only took a minute or two of my time. You could create a scale out of this. So all you have to do is plug in a client name and it just creates this on the fly for you. Um, and building off of the software automation that we've been releasing over the past month or so, something that's coming soon is the ability to do those patchings through the MCP. So if you wanted to build a custom schedule, right, you can pull the software vulnerabilities and then have the MCP also talk to your RMM to do the actual patching of those softwares. So that's currently in progress, and hopefully we'll have it out in the next few weeks or so. But anything that you can do in the API is something that's also accessible and queryable through the MCP. So if you have, if you're already using AI somewhere, plugging in the Cork MCP will only enrich everything that you're already doing.
So, Marcus, while you have that open and while you're talking about that, I was just thinking about the insanely fast world we're living in, where like time seems to be getting compressed. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing that or if it's just me. Uh, my hairline seems to be receding faster than ever before too. I don't know if those two are connected, but regardless, sorry. Um, uh, MCP and what you've built is about democratizing information, right? And accelerating our partners' ability to reconcile everything that they're doing so that they can do things better, faster, right? Um, I'm just curious, as we've seen the utilization of this pick up over the last 3 months, especially, right, Marcus? And then we're coming out of PAX 8 Beyond, where we had a lot of conversations around this in particular and demoed it even more than ever before. What do you think, like the 1, 2 lasting benefits of our MCP will be for our partners? Where are you seeing the highest utilization?
Yeah, I think the best bang for your buck out of our MCP is the fact that we're already integrated with so many different vendors and the fact that a lot of those vendors don't prioritize API and MCP for their own customers. So we're capitalizing on that and allowing you to surface that data extremely easily through the MCP and then shaping it in the way you need it for your operations. You could tie things together like the Cork MCP with some other way of creating service tickets for yourself, right? Or like I showed, generating QBRs. But the best part is just the way it can aggregate all the data for you already. But we also expose everything granularly through the MCP as well. So instead of seeing your client as one picture, you could understand the individual, elements and atoms that make up that individual client and know where exactly you need to pinpoint, your time and operations.
I want to add a
And,
little bit
and
more. Go ahead, Charles. You first.
No, and if I may, I mean, this is, I don't want people to sleep on this. This is like money, right? Because I have a bunch of friends who's like, hey, I just made an auto task MCP and I spent 15 days doing it and all that stuff. Hey, I just made one for that. Like, guys, like, they have all your information, right? All the telemetry data is sitting in Corkland, right? And all we need to do is query Corkland, which we dub Overwatch, right? So we're going to query Overwatch and in human language say, tell me what I need to know about this. How do I increase posture? What are my upsells? I can talk to it in real language and get real responses back. And not for nothing, that PDF that you spit out, Marcus, that was gorgeous, right? We pay somebody to make PDFs that pretty, and that just came out of the system. Like for the people on the call, don't sleep on this. Like once this is officially available and you can get to it, start playing with it, figure it out.
Well, I want to piggyback off what Charles is talking about. So we've run into a lot of partners that are doing this today, right? And so I went back to Marcus and I'm like, hey man, I'm really freaked out. Should I be worried about my job? Like people can just make these things, right? And what's interesting is when you ask the question further is that Autotask MCP is strictly for Autotask and it creates a
Yep.
silo. And everyone that you create is creating a silo. And so where Market's secret sauce is really coming into play is having them all talk to each other. And so that's where we have that head start to have those products have those integrations, which has been a really cool play because now you can go to Corkland and query everything instead of going into each individual to query each one that you have an agent on. So that's the real big one for everyone to understand. And if you're doing it today, we've already had a couple of partners decommission their engineering time to stop doing what they were doing and just purchase Cork. So what we just say is, hey, like test it, run it through its paces. And if you're spending less money to have your engineering time to actually keep up with it, keep the APIs going, great, right? Do that portion. But if you're not, take a look at Cork because if we can save you money to increase what you're doing, it just makes business sense. So I wanted to add that piece.
I had a partner at the event this week who's been playing around and built a number of things say to me, all of the other vendors are trying to get out of the atmosphere. You guys are already on the moon.
Mhm.
I thought that was a really great, I was grateful to hear that our partners are getting utilization out of the information that they already own. It's your data, right? It's your inputs that you're trying to gather so you can run your business more efficiently. We're trying to accelerate that, not control it. Dashboards are, who really cares about a dashboard? I could never build a dashboard to satisfy everybody's perfect view of the world. And I feel like this way, Charles, and all of your friends, right? You can create it exactly as you want it. You can build it in the way that you need it, and you can move so much faster. So, well, back to Overwatch, since you seem to be effective in identifying problems and identifying ways to go faster, and then you should join my marketing and branding committee, apparently. So you coined Overwatch because you found ways to identify gaps in your own organization and to make sure that you were able to do more for your partners, or I'm sorry, for your clients. Walk us through, some of the progression that you've made in your business, this year, and what are you doing to provide more value to your clients?
Well, value is in the eye of the beholder in some cases, right? But think about a brand new customer you just took on, and you get it. I have this fancy project in our project management system, and it says do the thing, do the thing, do the thing, and then they think they do the thing, they think they do the thing, right? And they move on from life. But you know what? Things happen, things break, things go away, things change, things update, whatever, and the old way of doing things is once a week I'm going to go and check the reports, right? I'm going to go make sure that EDR is on all the boxes. I'm going to log into the portal. I'm going to have a ticket. And I'm going to do this one thing once a week. Man, cybersecurity, no. No, right? This stuff has to be done all the time, right? It needs to be done quicker than that. Because if I were to tell a customer, hey, just so you know, if you get a new machine, you may have to wait like 7 to 14 days to get EDR protected on your machine. They'll be like, when does our contract end exactly? You know? So like I need something watching the system, right? Not that I don't trust our guys, I trust them implicitly, but things happen, right? Customers inadvertently get access to admin and they try to start freeing up space, and next thing you know, they're removing the EDR because they don't know what it is, right? And sometimes that happens. Sometimes it slips through. Sometimes things don't get installed when we think they do. But we just need that system to be able to look at all these various tool sets and make sure what I want to be in play is actually in play and running and checking in and all those things. That's why we call it the Overwatch.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need clients. We don't need your clients looking to see when the contract ends, right? And
Yeah.
and the way we think about it is when we look over nearly 6 million compliance events across our partners, that means active things that need to be remediated, where we're talking to our partners about these things. Uh, it means that the threat actors are constantly probing in an automated fashion. And together, we have to be ahead of what the threat actors are doing. And so if a client it happens to be naughty and uninstall something, then we need to go, put the naughty kid in the corner or just help the naughty kid.
Or the tech who's troubleshooting an issue and goes, I'll make sure I put that back on, right? Because I'm on the phone with Intuit or whoever, and they said, hey, remove this. I think this is causing it. All right, that didn't work. All right, remove this next thing. Remove this next thing. And I think Marcus put it in chat, disabling MFA, right? Just another really good example is somebody lost their phone, whatever, they need to get a new phone. We verify that the human in question is the person we're talking to. We do a FaceTime, all the things. And to onboard that new phone, in some cases, you disable MFA, right? In some cases. And as much as you write a little post-it note that says, don't forget to turn on MFA tomorrow when they get their new phone or whatever, the post-it note sits on your desk for 6 months, right? And you got that one ticket that came in, maybe that says, "Hey, MFA is not on for Charles," and then where's that thing going every day? Hey, MFA is not on. Hey, MFA is not on. That's where you guys come in.
Well, and it's that client, and it might be the CEO or C-suite of that business that really does want their cyber insurance to pay out if there's an incident, right? And
Yes,
they would expect you as their partner to help them make sure that that happens. And if by chance you forgot or something just didn't happen in, making sure all those dots are connected, that MFA is on, kind of get down that basic list, then we've done a disservice to that client. And that's so much of our joint value prop of where we work together is we have to keep that money in the bank account of the clients, and we have to make sure that you're having a great QBR business conversation about what their business needs are. And again, bring it back to the dollar rather than just here's more technology spent. Are you having more of those types of conversations too, Charles, about, financial?
absolutely.
Okay, like what, right?
Yeah, just like, showing them where they were compared to where they are. You know what I mean? Like I always tell people, I want to be in the paper for you saying, ShowTech did bang up job and won an award for a customer, whatever it may be. I don't want to see ShowTech drop the ball, right? I don't want the bonehead article to come out about ShowTech. I want it to be how we saved a customer. We won an award, something like that. We always want to see the positive stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why you use us too, because although we've never denied a claim, and Marcus, we're at 27, nearing 30 different payouts, I think at this point. But again, that's, over 5 million compliance events. And that means that our ratio is 0.00002%, right? We want to keep together, we want to keep the risk mitigated so that you are in the paper saying, hey, we were able to prevent these things and actually keep you in a safe environment rather than expose you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Um, Andrew, I want to come back to you for a moment. I see we're coming up on time here shortly. And for those attendees, please, if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll get to them here. Andrew, thinking about all of the conversations that you've had this week with a wide variety of partners from around the world, actually, right? There's a change in what their needs are and how we're able to help them. There's a very unique value prop in Cork in that we are not an endpoint solution, but we kind of sit above all of the vendors out there, aggregate them, and are able to provide the efficiency, cybersecurity, and financial protection across all of those signals. Did you learn anything this week about about what partners need and something we should be applying around MCP or around providing that data and protection back to our partner ecosystem?
Uh, Marcus is going to kill me that I'm going to say this, but it's basically what I learned is that partners want more, right? Because essentially we're speeding up what they're already trying to do. And so the more information, the more categories, the more we become that one pane of glass truly. Like if we actually had everything under the Cork umbrella from the categories that the managed service provider offer, this becomes right now because even right now with the MCP, we're able to connect those 8 security tools plus their PSA tool. They still have some other things that they would have to query outside of that and then bring it together. Where, and I think that's what our goal is, right? Is to be that side of it. I think the other one that was really interesting, no matter the size of the partner, whether it was a 1 person shop or a 200 person shop, there was no really good answer to say, hey, if I buy your security stack, how do you actually monitor that proactively? And right, even with Charles saying, hey, like if we do it once every 7 days, realistically to me, what that means is that I have a 7 day gap of 7 day risk that something could happen. And if I'm paying insurance, I'm also have that 7 day window where something could go wrong and I could not actually execute my policy. And so I think those are the real big ones that were coming out of Beyond where partners want to deliver more, right? Like they don't want to just sell things to customers. They want to really deliver outcomes. Uh, and they're trying to really navigate how to leverage AI, how to leverage what they have. Uh, and honestly, I think one of the other big ones is most partners are trying to figure out how to bring down their tech sprawl, right? I think that's why they're creating these agents and trying to do that. Because before it was, let's throw headcount, let's throw tech at it. And I don't think that's the way of the future.
Certainly
So
not.
so yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Charles, I'd love to come back to you. Hypothetical, you're advising another, partner similar size, right? Just bought Cork, 90 days. What do you tell them to operationalize first, second, third?
Yeah, absolutely. First things first, integrate that ticket system, right? I did not in the beginning, and it was a misstep. It was a misstep, and Dan and I had actually spoke about that, because humans, believe it or not, forget things, right? So I have a new car, and it doesn't use a key, right? It has a fob thing, and it sticks in my pocket, and I don't even know where it is half the time. But I will tell you, I never lock my door, right? Because I'm used to doing the boop, I hit the button. I just don't because I don't think of it. I walk toward the car, it unlocks. I sit in it, I push the button, I go. You know what I mean? I don't have to like do a thing anymore. And my phone, I get that message that says, "Hey, dummy, you didn't lock your door." Every day, every day, multiple times per day. And I'm like, "Yep, please lock." That's kind of like my Cork, right? Because as much as text, as much as your techs think they are the best in the universe, they're going to forget to do the thing, right? And just like with my car telling me, hey, dummy, you didn't do this thing, I need a system to watch and tell me. Because let's face it, nobody logs into a portal, right? I've logged into the Cork portal a handful of times this quarter. But you know what? My team's an auto task all day, every day, right? So if I'm expecting somebody to go into a thing to look at stuff, it's never going to happen. Things get busy, the coffee maker, whatever, right? So I need those actionable intels. I need a ticket to go to a tech. And what is the basis of a ticket? It's a game. How can I get these tickets off my board? Right. And if I get a ticket that says, hey, I don't think you have EDR in this box, they're going to be like, ooh, I have a ticket. I need to make my hours. Let me go ahead and fix this. And then they do the thing. So by gamifying closing these tickets, I'm giving the customers better customer satisfaction. There's actionable intel because now I can say, oh, wow, Cork opened this many tickets today, right? But if I'm expecting somebody to log into a portal to action upon all these bar charts and these things, it's never going to happen. There's no thing to do. There's no notice. So absolutely ticket number one is going to be it. Number two is get your account managers into the portal. There is so much good stuff in there. I remember when Cork had one EDR and two RMM vendors, right? And you guys are just adding all the time, right? So, and which is great. I went in there the other day and I was like, oh, it integrates into something. I forget what it was, but we went and turned it on, right? It was something that we were, I think it was our security awareness training. We integrated into that, so we turned that on. But get the account managers in there, have them start asking you questions. And number three is, wow, based upon what I saw today with that MCP portal, get that going, right?
Yeah.
Because since it is human language, your account manager or your TAM may call it something other than SAT, right? They're like, tell me about, they may call it the name of the product, or and this way you could train a model to say, hey, here's the types of questions they're going to ask, things like that. But those are three things that, if I were to start again today, those are the three things I would get out the door first.
Race car fast right there, Charles. I
That's
appreciate
it.
it. Yep. Uh, Marcus, I want to piggyback on that. You've been building, you've been listening, you're constantly asking questions. Charles called you out for normalizing the API schema and just being able to go quickly. The result of that is that, over 100 some integrations, now we're covering 95% of the SMB market with regard to technologies. Like it's about, the democratization of the data for our partners to be able to do it however they want at whatever level, right? TAM, or intern. So, Marcus, you've also been automating everything, right? We've moved from compliance notifications into remediation. Why?
Yeah, I mean, we built Cork to really connect all those tools together, and people choose not to automate things right away until they trust the data that it's operating on. And so we carefully took our time to trust the data that we've been providing for our partners for the past, 18 months or so. And once we were able to gain their trust, you know, and we continue to reciprocate that, that's where we were like, okay, we have a chance to automate things now. And to Charles's point, people don't want to go in dashboards and click around and try to find the things that are broken and wrong. Where once you have a tool that you trust, now you can add that automation layer on top of it and simplify all of your operations just then and there. You'll go into the dashboard, a couple clicks to set everything up, and set it and forget it. And that was one of the early mantras of Cork from the beginning was you could set it and forget it. You can connect all your integrations. You can get all those compliance event notifications, things like that. But after some tweaking here and tweaking there, we trust the data that we're providing to our partners now. And so the next obvious step in the world we're in now is finding a way to automate it. So we've been able to turn action into remediation now. Instead of just surfacing the problems, and we can fix them for you now.
Yeah, love it. Team, I think we covered all the bases. I really appreciate Marcus, Andrew, you guys walking us through some highlights and some details there so we could learn a bit more. Charles, as always, your insights and experiences are deeply meaningful. Um, you're always pushing, and that means it creates friction. And where there's friction, there's grip. And where there's grip, it allows us all to accelerate together and deliver results, right? Hit the apexes. So, I'm grateful for that. We learn together because of it. And thank you for the partnership and thank you for sharing all of your experiences with the audience today. It means a lot to me. I love that you are so open and loving about how you approach all of this.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Cool. All right. Without further ado, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your Thursday, and we'll see you on the next masterclass. Cheers.
Take care.